Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
And what is going on, everyone? It is Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you are tuned in for an all-new edition of Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also Nerd Initiative Editor-in-Chief. To my left, you're right at home. It's in his contract. He does his own intro.
Come at you for the first time on Nerd Initiative in 2025. Well, for Nerd Mage at least. My name's off the cuff, Tom. Nerd Initiative's pop culture connoisseur. Ken, that's it. It's nobody else. It's just you and me tonight.
It's just us tonight.
And we're talking comic books for once.
Yeah, it's a little break from what we've been doing lately because we've been so fortunate to have a lot of reviews and interviews going on here that
Amazing.
We're coming off a monster Cheersies award, which we can't thank everybody enough for checking out and supporting. But tonight we thought we'd take it back to where we're breaking down a story. And Tom, why don't you break down how we got into this?
Well, I figured it's a new year, so, I threw it out there like, what book do we have that we could say something is new? Whether it was a New Mutant or, the new Teen Titans, or trust me, this guy is the new and improved Ken as always, every single week. But he came up with the idea of doing new X-Men.
Yes, and not just any new X-Men story. This is the one that really was a game changer in 2001. It sounds so weird to say it.
Yeah.
But 2001, Grant Morrison took over the X-Men reins with New X-Men 114 and really revolutionized what was going on with Frank Quitely. And this has been a game changer book for many, many reasons. And the influences are still seen today in such series as X-Men 97, Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yep. You
have seen a lot of what is spawned out of this story into pop culture. And it's absolutely amazing to see. So tonight, what we thought we'd do is, before we get back into the interview rotation, we're going to break down New X-Men 114 to 116 and the E is for Extinction storyline. So if you haven't checked out the series for whatever, we are going to be talking spoilers after our spoiler-free statement. You have been fair warned, but super chat, I want to know who your favorite X-Men is. So definitely throw them in there. But Tom, why don't you give me your spoiler-free statement about this series?
Since everybody kind of knows that I know about characters and about powers and about this and about that, but I don't necessarily know storylines. This was a big pill to swallow. That's the best way I can put it. There's a lot of stuff that you're like, oh. There's a lot of O's in this and a lot of X's. And I got to say, it was a hard pill to swallow in a good way. Like, there was just a lot to take in. You had to read it twice for me.
Yeah. This is one where the X-Men are kind of coming out of an interesting time period. Joe Quesada is Marvel editor-in-chief, makes a big splash by getting Grant Morrison to come over, who had been making his name over with Vertigo. And more importantly, one of my favorite all-time runs of any comic series of all time, JLA with him and Howard Porter, where he revolutionized the Justice League. And if you haven't read that entire run, I highly recommend it. Like, it is where I set the benchmark for JLA. And that is saying a lot, knowing their history, their characters. Like, that is a all-time defining run. So when he came over to X-Men, he really wanted to switch things up. And boy, did he ever, taking big swings right out the gate with this storyline. Down the road, I have mixed feelings about, but this is just something with him. If you really want to kind of get into that weird area of storytelling, he really pushed the envelope. He really took some chances and really set the tone for what we see a lot now in these runs, especially coming out of the Krakoan era in the fall of the From the Ashes storylines.
Yep.
So this has been one I've been waiting to check out for a while on the show. Chat, super chat, definitely make your voices heard, because where we kick things off is a little more traditional in the sense. We start with Wolverine and Cyclops taking out a Sentinel who has a mutant captured. I love how they set this up too with the splash page, because the characters right off the bat.
Yep, that's it. And you got to give them credit, just changing up the design in All New X-Men with these extremely super casual leather jackets, as opposed to the skin tight suits. What do you expect? Blue and yellow spandex versus black leather.
Well, you have to remember, this is around the time when the movie came out.
Exactly.
The first one. So they are kind of mimicking a little bit of what's going on, but this story is anything but a normal one, because it does do a little bit of a jump, and you start going into a different time period. And I'm going to kind of skip the pages a little bit, because you see this opening scene play out.
Yeah.
And Tom, when you're watching this, what is going through your head? Because like we say, this is 30,000 years earlier.
It's a lot to, again, it's a what the heck moment. One of the best things I love about this is that, yes, we don't know who the character is necessarily in the safari hat, but talking about, the evolution of humanity and as it goes, and then seeing, that big splash red X right there. Like that's just foreshadowing like nobody's business. And I love that tiny little nod that's put right in there.
Yeah. It's a little footnote that they tease, and very well done too, because you're just hearing this person really start talking about evolution and mutants, and not really given a warm and fuzzy feeling going on with it. Meanwhile, back at the X mansion, it is a little bit changing of the guard per se. And the first thing that jumps out to me is Quietly's version of Beast.
Now, this is Beast after his second mutation, correct?
Correct.
Now you're going to have to specify for this, because I remember as he was going through this feral mutation, didn't he go about it in stages?
It kind of happened like that. It's been done a little bit different here and there, but yeah, this is when I think it was in stages. But this one they really pushed for.
Yeah.
To really make it stand out, because the one thing at this time period too is we're in this interesting point with mutants where they look too normal.
Yeah.
And for a lot of these books, especially this time, especially the original Generation X run, they really wanted to get back to the mutation, like really stand out and be different. And I think with this version of Hank McCoy, we see this play out.
It's a whole lot of Beast.
It definitely is. And then as you see, Professor X is coming up with an interesting concept to use
Cerebra.
Yes, break it down for me.
So Cerebra is Hank's new invention that he created that amplifies Charles's power almost tenfold. It is literally Cerebro's big brother, Cerebra.
Yeah.
Bruh.
And that can only mean disaster in the wrong hands.
You think?
But it is a game-changing moment nevertheless. All the while, you still have Cyclops and Wolverine. They're flying back the mutant that was captured there, who just simply titled Ugly John.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it is what it is with him.
He's one of the worst mutants out there, but you know what? There's got to be a mutation for everything.
But the writing just really reflects the growing tension between Cyclops and Logan.
Oh, yeah.
And I really thought that Morrison hit the points here, because when you start dealing with that, you really get into how very much they're alike, but very, very different, because they're both down to their business. They both really kind of dip into what makes them stand out as far as Xavier's dream. But you can definitely see they can agree to disagree, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's times in any good relationship, especially in a work relationship, where you got to be like that. It's like, I don't know, Ken. I always agree with Ken. So,
yes,
on camera.
Yes, on camera indeed. But as we start seeing, this really starts taking hold, because when Xavier is communicating with them what's going on, and he's trying to translate about the mission, and something is going wrong, well, his new toy draws a little bit of attention.
Yes. So we find out that there's someone out there with immense telepathic powers that was able to, just as much as Chuck was able to hone in on all the mutants, they were able to reverse it and hone in on Chuck. And let's just say you don't with Chuck. And apparently they did.
Well, they did. And when this draws it out, Xavier knows something's wrong, especially where he goes, I will say, a little brash here.
Very.
As you see in the middle page here, Charles knows that something's wrong. Somebody's trying to overtake his mind, and he whips a pistol out, which I think at this time is a little bit out of left field.
Left field indeed. Look, I've always thought of Charles as a humanitarian, as someone who always likes to keep his powers in check, somebody who doesn't make that jump to go from 0 to 11.
Yeah.
And he completely went to 11.
Yeah. It is one that they really push the extremes. And I think what Morrison was trying to do is set the tone. Like, this is not the same old X-Men that This is a whole different team, a whole lot of motion going on. And you really see this start playing out, because that's probably the first thing out of this opening issue that you can tell. Like, this is definitely not the same stat quo.
No, this is not your X-Men 97, folks.
Yeah. And you can definitely tell that they're more extreme about things. No pun intended.
Coming out of the 90s, extreme.
But coming into this new, decade, yeah, this is not the same one that from Claremont and Jim Lee and that time period. And they really push that envelope. And then when you get to this final page again, and you see the Temple of the Sentinel, so to speak.
Yeah. Like this massive, master mold just randomly in the middle of Ecuador. Like,
yeah.
This is awesome. Like, this is cool. Like, it's so massive. Like, it's so big. Like, it could have been something that was time displaced and just put there. But the fact that it just fits into the geography and topography and everything, it just works, and I like it.
Oh, it works completely. And you see that. I mean, it gives the ominous tone of what's going on. So this issue right here was just pretty straightforward build.
Yeah.
And I liked about it. You didn't need to give everything away just now.
Nope.
But they definitely set the precedent and really put a good pace on this, that this is going to be something different. The personalities stand out too, especially Jean Grey, who is really in this, like, in a different place than we've seen her before.
Yeah.
And I think that really shines through, because especially you have this mysterious villain that's lurking and pulling the strings, and especially making that attack on Charles Xavier at his home base, at his own game. Like, that is a bold move to do. And then you see, obviously, they're paired with a bloodline of Bolivar Trask.
Yep.
And knowing that name involving Sentinels, there's going to be no good coming from this.
Never. Nothing with Bolivar Trask is.
Right. So then we jump to New X-Men 115. Love that cover. Very simple with Wolverine. And then that opening shot too with the Sentinels again, and seeing how that is. And Tom, like, you as a reader watching that, how is your reaction?
Big.
Yeah.
It's just big. Trying to realize, yes, we figured out how big, we saw the scale of the master mold in the jungle, but to be right up on top of it with two humans, well, a human and something, it really does make you see the vastness and the size of this extinction level event. As it says right here, when I got out of bed this morning, I didn't expect to exterminate 15 million people.
Yeah.
That really does show off a lot. And it's a lot to take in, even as a reader.
It's a lot to take in, but it's one that makes a loud statement early.
Yep.
And that's what you want to do, because knowing what you set the pieces for, you did the attack on Xavier to begin with. Cyclops and Wolverine have been dispensed to come find you. It's now the chess pieces are moving into place, but if you're going to go on and really make an attack like that out of the gate, you have to come swinging and with really a bold plan. And sure enough, that's what we get here.
Mm-hmm.
And then to see where Wolverine and Cyclops come in, getting attacked and under fire too.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one thing I liked about this, is they went in and these upstart Sentinels started attacking them.
I like the fact that the Master Mold used what was on hand to make, Sentinels, or to make Sentinel-like things, or robots, or automatons, whatever word you want to use. That was fun. That was smart. Like, you saw ostrich-looking Sentinels, you saw bugs, you saw it had some sort of sentience to be able to use what it had. I like that.
Yeah, it's using what you have. It's not exactly the perfect robots.
Nope.
This is something that I really thought they did well, because it definitely stood out, and it kind of teases about what they are truly up with.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't know. You just know there's a mysterious villain here.
Yep.
And to see Wolverine and Cyclops do this while they're trying to protect Ugly John, you see the banter go back and forth. And I love how they set that up. But then you see a moment here, which I throw on the screen, and I think we know about this. I know Chris from the Bada Boom podcast was chiming in about this, because they do tease this with Deadpool and Wolverine. And you see who we know from the movies is Cassandra Nova now.
Yep.
Doing the infamous hand swipe through the face of Mr. Trask, and teases what's going on here. And I guess, Tom, you want to take this scene and kind of
I don't want to. It's just gross. I mean, I don't like it, but I love the fact that, she's playing the long game, and the fact that she can figure out and reconfigure her DNA to become Bolivar Trask, so she can have control of the Master Mold, because, that's how Trask does. If it's Trask DNA, it can control any Sentinel. So that's cool. That's fun. I still hate the effect.
I hate the effect, but I love the effect.
It serves its purpose, but I don't like it.
Yeah, because especially at this time too, she's taken Wolverine and Cyclops hostage.
Yep.
And,
After finally destroying that fugly X-Jet. I'm sorry, give me the Blackbird any day.
well, like I say, it wasn't the official one because it's more of a recon jet. But you see, though, they take everybody hostage, and Cassandra Nova is now revealing herself to the team there. She does the injections, and she's torturing Ugly John in front of them.
Yeah.
Tortures Wolverine, who in true Wolvie fashion definitely stands up there and does not blink, so to speak.
Nope, not at all. And I love the fact that the interrogation piece was 3 Sentinel heads altogether, just because I had this around. I'm going to turn into a torture device. Why not?
Yeah. Well, like I say, it's just manipulating the stat quo.
Yep.
And especially seeing this new look of Sentinels, that jumps out as well. And it really plays into what they're trying to do with the series. And we see how Wolverine is defiant in the end, but Ugly John obviously is not. You see Cyclops has to do something, which, I mean, at this time, we don't really know him to do.
Right.
But what does he wind up having to do with Ugly John?
Ugly John doesn't have any healing factor. Or he's literally a guy with 3 faces. He has nothing extra as far as mutabilities are. He is suffering.
Yeah.
Total suffering. And for lack of better words, Scott does the most humane thing and puts him out of his misery. Now he's had his eyes closed the whole time, or he has his backup ruby contacts I've never heard of up until that moment. But he puts him out of his misery and kills Ugly John.
Yeah. And it is a powerful moment too, because I think at this one, we always kind of think of Scott as the ultimate Boy Scout as far as the X-Men go. And this one, it really blurred the lines, especially when he's talking him through what he's going to do. And he says, just look at my eyes as he's dying. And like, that is kind of a very powerful line that comes off as he does this, because you would think normally he has Wolverine do this.
Yeah.
Because Wolverine, that's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he goes to the extremes that others won't. And I think in this moment, you see a new Scott Summers emerge.
Yeah.
And I think for fans of the X-Men, it's a little shocking because we don't see this in him.
Nope.
But yet to see how cold he is, and they even allude to it a little earlier there when Wolverine says something. He's like, I love how you just are ice under pressure. I think they really wanted to establish about how Scott could be in these situations. And this is why he's the leader of the X-Men, that he is somebody that can understand the situation. And I think now they wanted to say, like, he can go to that level if need be.
I think he's always could, but I think he's finally has the scruples to be able to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I see Scott, trying to always be that type of person, but knowing that it's pushing off the guilt and whatnot to somebody else, especially, oh, well, this is my job as captain. I know that people are going to die under my command, but if I have somebody to do it for me, I'm, off the hook.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of that one episode, Deep Space Nine, where Cisco does his whole monologue. It was one of the best, most powerful episodes. I cannot remember the name of it right now, but then he deletes the file because, he just needed to get it off his chest. That's what I kind of think how Scott's finally justifiable death.
Yeah. But all the while here, they take Cassandra prisoner, so to speak. And Wolverine has the claws ready to pop.
At 130 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So there's just weird fact that now, folks.
Yeah. So he's ready to go, and he's asking about those Sentinels. And just that panel that's on the right side of the screen where Cassandra's sitting there with just the smirk and knowing about what is going on, because he just keeps going like, where did you send this? Like, why are you laughing? Like, what? And Logan doesn't realize what's happening.
Nope.
And I don't think anybody was prepared for what was happening.
No. And I'll be honest, going into this, not knowing this storyline, and after coming off of, what we just saw last year, thanks, Ken.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Remember me. Yeah. Because what we get
thanks, Ken,
is the adaptation that you see from X-Men 97.
Yep.
The nation of Genosha is thriving. Magneto has set this up. It's now prosperous. We see the shot of Emma Frost with the classroom. And then suddenly you see this montage happen of these pages. And you see the destruction of Genosha happen with what Cassandra Nova has unleashed.
Mm-hmm.
And this chat, super chat, what is your reaction seeing the comic version of this? I know we talk X-Men 97 here quite often, but this is the source material from it.
Thanks, Ken.
Hey, just remember me. But we see this and just this destruction and Xavier's words too in that last page where he is just in shock and horror
Yeah.
of what has happened, because in his wildest dreams he's never seen this, because at this time too, this is Genosha was the embodiment of his dream
Mm-hmm.
that he had a safe haven for mutants. And to see this play out, and you see just how the towers are coming, the buildings are all coming down, you're seeing this play, and just Xavier's just watching this from afar, and they have the Genosha counter going.
Oh, that one. That's what got me. And seeing Hank like
Yeah.
Thanks, Ken.
You just see that counter going down and down even further. And when you're watching this play out too, like you just see Xavier's, going, he's like, no one saw this coming.
Nope.
Everybody's drinking tea, making love, all the lights are out. No one saw this. And you just see that number keep plummeting and plummeting and plummeting. And the extermination event is going on while this massive sentinel has been unleashed. And literally, that's what they wind up doing for issue 2 in X-Men 115.
Yeah.
I mean, super chat, when you're watching this, how is this playing out in comparison? Like, I'll throw the picture back up. This is what you saw with Gambit running through the streets of Genosha. And when he's taken out and he's trying to make that valiant save and he says, remember me, this is what it's going through. But you have to remember, at this time, we have not seen an event like this. This is the second issue of Morrison's run.
Right.
Like, we have to remember, it's like Genosha had been attacked before, but this is a different kind of a whole different ball of wax here.
Now, have we ever seen an extinction level event in Marvel up to this point? Honestly.
To a degree. I mean, I think
8 million people though?
No, not on planet Earth. No, I'm thinking was it Operation Galactic Storm? Or the Kree Skrull War.
Okay, yeah.
So in that kind of aspect, I'm blanking on which one. So obviously jump in the chat and let me know which one.
But we haven't seen it on our own home turf.
No, not on Earth.
Okay.
I mean, Genosha had been attacked before because of the Extinction Agenda story, but not on this scale.
No,
like this is just death and destruction to an astronomical level, and you just start seeing like this. I mean, we talk about Morrison taking a bold swing. Like you can't get better about it. And Quitely's art here too. The simple panels on the right side where you just see the ticker going, and just Xavier's eyes as he's watching, and just the shock on his body when he's feeling all this.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, like I say, it's a powerful just kick in the jaw, just in the face, just like, whoa, what was just happened? And then you go into issue 3 of the third chapter, I should say, X-Men 116, and right out the gate you have the X-Men, who is a smaller lineup, going there, and Beast is sitting there just trying to come to terms with it, and just the shock that they're going through watching this. I mean, how could you imagine them? They literally saw this from afar.
Yeah.
Now they're in Genosha. The radiation levels are all through an all-time high. They find a survivor right now.
Well, what gets me is the fact that, this very much reminds me of, they'll talk about, we've seen it in like Iron Man 3 with the extremists, and how you saw like the shadows, and that was based off of Hiroshima when, the nuclear blast happened. If you look in the background while Beast is hanging onto that person's skull, if you look on the street light back there is a fused body to that street light.
Oh yeah,
holding on to it still just to try and survive. So this is the reality of war. It doesn't matter where you come from, whether a human, mutant, real life comic books. This is sorry, just had a moment.
no, it's an intense one, and that's what I think Morrison was really illustrating with this too, of how major this event was, and how tragic it is, and especially on mutant kind. And you see how the X-Men there are dealing with something they've never dealt with on a level like this before.
Yep.
And then they do find the one survivor, and the one survivor turns out to be Emma Frost.
And I believe this is what was her trigger point to her second mutation.
Yep. Because this is when she comes out in her diamond form, and she's taking a dead body out, it was Negasonic and Teenage Warhead. Yeah, who we know from the Deadpool movies.
Hi,
And-
Yuki.
Yeah. And this is where Emma is sitting there and not accepting what has happened. And you start seeing her, who has always been very cold and very
Stoic.
And now you're starting to see her react to this.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start seeing the reactions around the world, when Xavier meets back up with Wolverine and Cyclops and start thinking about what happened, and when they wind up bringing back Cassandra Nova too, this is where things get really crazy. Because when they bring her back to the X Mansion, they have her in a stasis pod. Xavier's now starting to investigate. You do have Emma, who's now in this diamond form and dealing with Hank, and the dialogue of Emma Frost. Let's get into this, chat. Tom, how would you describe this?
Oh my god, this was so fun going back and forth. Like Hank having this weird new bravado that he has from his mutation, and then Emma just being Emma Frost is great. And the fact that he's trying to hold her back and whatnot, and then she finally says, I've become the perfect Fabergé killing machine for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, if that's not an Emma Frost line, I'm sorry, you gotta go read another comic book. But
Yeah.
that's just perfect. I mean, she's blowing off everybody, but Emma is just so hell-bent on getting revenge, hell-bent on holding people accountable. And Jean even steps in and says, no, that's the Magneto way. You're one of us now. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, this is damn good writing. This is what Morrison does well.
Oh, yeah. Morrison's writing of Emma Frost through this entire run elevates her to the hero we know her as now.
Now, I don't know how I feel about the exact design, how they did like this glazing look on top of her. But that's, hey, it was 20 some odd years ago. What we got. But then again, I also don't know how I feel sometimes when I see other people do like the full on sparkly diamond rhinestone version of her either. So
yeah,
we'll take what we can get.
But I do love the back and forth with her and Jean.
Oh, yeah.
And especially when Jean says, what makes you such a explicit, we'll just say. And Emma's response is breeding, darling. Top class breeding. Oh, what a line. Like I say, Emma really was a breakout character in this run, and this is the start of it too. Meanwhile, you start having everybody trying to break down what has happened, and really, like, now the world is on edge because of what has really transpired.
Yeah.
And this is something that for the X-Men, who have really kind of focused on their own thing, now they're in the public spotlight for I don't want to say for the first time, but in a manner that they're not prepared for.
Yeah, I think that this wasn't, played out to their advantage. They just finally had the spotlight thrust upon them.
Mm-hmm. And when they start analyzing Cassandra too, Hank is breaking down that, she preys on mutants and they don't know why. And they start, kind of diving into her background, but we don't really know too much. And then Hank is sitting there trying to explain to Logan about what's going on. And when he is doing this, he winds up waking Cassandra up.
Mm-hmm. And one other cool thing about this is we get to talk about the E gene as opposed to the X gene. The X gene is what gives the mutants their powers when they finally either puberty or, vast emotional, something happens, or in extreme cases that it, manifests itself. But this one is the E gene found in Homo sapiens, which says that there should be an extinction level event. And that's where, the next evolution comes from.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a fun way to put that in. The idea that it's going to be in 3 to 4 generations, I thought that was kind of lackluster, but.
Well, I think they're just kind of teasing about what they could do with this.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with making this an extinction level event, that's what Cassandra's game was. To see Xavier's reaction to this and everybody else, with the minute that Cassandra wakes up, the windows shatter in the manor, and literally all hell is about to break loose.
Yep.
Because Xavier's trying to say, like, remain calm, even though Wolverine has cut her vocal cords, because that's how she was controlling the Sentinels.
Right.
She's still there waiting on the attack and really starts taking us to a psionic level. And this is where things really start getting interesting, because Xavier is now challenged on this. His students have been through this before. We see, Scott has this weird interaction with the bug room.
Yep.
Which, plays those fears. Jean, same thing too. And it's a very cool montage
they all get trapped in their own mental prison.
Yeah.
For half a second.
And then you even see with Wolverine, who's sitting there trying to claw at Cassandra, loses his arm. And you just see the metal skeleton.
Yeah. And it's weird. Like, where is she pulling this whole armor that she's getting from?
It's a psionic one that she's been using.
Okay, because when I first looked at this, I thought, oh well, she's pulling away the adamantium, but now better look at it. Yeah, it's not. So
it's more of a psionic, and she's pulling the metal from the room together.
Yeah,
which I mean she can do. She's a as we find out as the series moves forward, she's that Omega level mutant, so she can do a lot. And Xavier is just trying to piece together why, because now she gets a hold of Cerebra. It's game over. Meanwhile, at this time, Emma Frost leaves the X Mansion.
Peacing out.
Yeah. And it starts kind of going through reflecting about what's happened here. And then about almost as she's at the door with the taxi, she says, stop the car. And, going through the dialogue that she needed, she was saying like she intended to have herself valued. On second thought, I just had an epiphany, like St. Paul at the road to Damascus, stop the car. Like I say, the writing of Emma Frost in this entire run is amazing.
It's breeding in class, my darling.
Yes. So we see her come back to the X Mansion and literally becomes the game changer that they need to save the day.
Yep.
Because as Cassandra's about ready to go into
Cerebra,
Emma is the one to take her out
in diamond form.
Yes.
And I believe that also goes to the fact that with her diamond form, she can't use her particular telekinetic abilities, nor can she be probed telekinetically. So she kind of was on telekinetic stealth mode and jumped in and relieved her of some pressure in her neck.
Oh yeah. and of course with the one-liner, there's some things you just shouldn't be allowed to get away with.
Yep.
Mic drop. And even Wolverine's answer to this, are you okay with this, Scott? Which I had to laugh. Okay, I should not have laughed at this, but I legit did, because of all the people to question about stopping a threat like this.
Yeah.
Wolverine has become the voice of reason.
Hold on there, bub.
Yeah. Of all people, he is the one with a conscience while this is going on. So Scott has already killed Ugly John.
Yep.
He's allowed the murder of Cassandra Nova.
Yep.
And Wolverine's like, you think we went too far?
I think it's the cheekbones. We must give him new clarity.
It's something. I was like, what? That was the only thing that really threw me off. And of course, Scott is saying like, Emma, I knew you wouldn't turn your back on us. And meanwhile, Emma, again, with the one-liner, was like, I forgot my coat.
No, she came back for her handbag.
Or the handbag, I'm sorry, yes. So as we see...
Well, no, dude, it's Louis Vuitton. Of course, even I would.
But as we see in this moment, Cassandra is disintegrated.
Well, she's trying to come back because she has some sort of latent healing ability. And yeah, Chuck comes through.
Yeah. And
like what the Chuck?
Yeah. But Charles is like, it, and I like how he refers it. He does not even say
he, she, they.
No,
it,
because he considers Cassandra an alien. And he's like, it killed 16 billion mutants. It would kill all of us. May posterity forgive me, because he's the one that puts the final death blow in. So it is a wild moment to think. But I mean, going through this, I mean, super chat, what is your reaction to that, of how they stopped Cassandra at this moment?
I was okay with Emma doing it, because that's her. That makes sense. But to see Charles, again, go from 0 to 11 like that, I can only justify it to the fact that she got in his head. And if you have that much power, if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. Yeah, that was a big, okay.
Yeah. Well, I think in this situation, the punishment fit the crime.
Yeah.
And they knew that we have this unknown threat that's now killed the entire nation in Genosha.
Yep, half the mutants on Earth.
Yeah,
population. That's what I was looking for.
So, and Lord knows what they're going to do to everybody else. And then this creature took the fight right to their home turf.
Yep,
and was all a ploy to get there. So it's interesting to see the Xavier cross the line, but that's something I think Morrison wanted to really point out with this run. And I know I kind of reiterate this a lot, but this was another moment that he was saying, this is not the typical X-Men you know.
Nope.
And they're willing to go with a harder stance when need be. And it works for trying to make this stand out from something that we as readers have known.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to make them per se X-Force or a Punisher-esque where they're, proactive in that manner. This is a situation where you just see how the emotions of this event have warned them to, or pushed them into a different direction they need to be in. And this is something that you even see, again, Wolverine questioning. He's like, hardcore, Chuck. And Charles has to say, like, I had to stop it. I won't allow any more mutants to die. Things must change to me, my X-Men. And that's how it ends with that group shot. But then this is the moment that I think changes a lot for everybody. Because in this moment, you see the epilogue with Scott and Jean, and they alluded to that they're having marital problems.
Yes.
And you see Xavier is now working the talk show circuit. And in this moment, on this very last panel, what does he say?
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Charles Xavier, also known as Professor X, and I am a mutant.
Mic drop.
Mic drop, the end, close scene.
Yep.
I'm really surprised they did that. And I'm surprised, I mean, with his new run, yeah, okay, I get it. We've known that Charles has said that he's been a mutant before, but to do this right off the bat, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That is the no F's are given. And the other thing is, when you go back, and I don't know if we had the panel up, but when he did the To Me, My X-Men, you still see that that there's a piece of Cerebra's glass stuck in Charles's head.
Yeah.
Like, that's hardcore Chuck right there.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it just reflects the times they're in, that the evolution of evil for mutants has now gone to a place I don't think they were even fathoming. And I think that you see just Xavier and how far he's willing to go for his dream, and how the X-Men stand behind him there. And it's, like I say, this is the new norm. Like, this is going to be the new stat quo. So to see him take the proactive stance and just basically, announce that, yeah, we're mutants. We've been mutants the entire time, and put that in the public persona, and watching what happens after. I mean, it's revolutionary for its time, on so many different levels. And literally, that's what wraps up the first arc of Morrison's run. Like, that's a game-changing moment.
It really is. And think about it. It's 24 years since then, right?
Yep.
And we're still seeing the after effects. So that means that Morrison, obviously a phenomenal writer, it still holds up today. The things we've seen adapted, the characters we've seen adapted, that is exactly why we needed to cover this book.
Oh, yeah. Because if you really want to take a look at how impactful this is, we alluded to X-Men 97.
Yep.
And how literally
the Tri-Sentinel,
the attack on Genosha, what it did, how it changed the course of the X-Men after.
Mm-hmm.
That's a moment in time that lives in infamy in mutant kind, but it's one that for the pop culture audience may not have known about, but this is where it comes from. And this is also a point too, where you start seeing the change in personality in one Charles Xavier, which you now still see to this day in the comics, that he's a lot more, shall we say, extreme when he needs to be. He's not hesitant to cross a line, I guess is where I'm going, because we've seen a lot of really nefarious stuff from Charles, from the Genosha, or the Krakoan era to now, even in the current run. So it's like I say, it kind of blurs the line of what is good and what is evil in mutant kind.
Yep.
And then especially too, we get introduced to Cassandra Nova, who many fans found out about through the Deadpool Wolverine movie.
Yep.
And seeing how extreme she is. And then when you find out her story as this run goes on, and the connection with Charles Xavier, and like how insane this is, Morrison really took the liberties and ran with it. And especially at the time where they're coming off the height of the movie.
Yep.
And we often mention this with the MCU, that they can't falter when you have that many eyes of pop culture on you.
No, not at all.
And this one, they took a lot of swings, and for this entire run, they weren't afraid to go push the envelope. So before we give our grades in chat, super chat, if you've read this book, I want to see your grades in the chat as well. Tom, was there anything you didn't like about this?
It's not that I didn't like. Again, I just think that there were a few art choices, and that doesn't take it away from me. I'm always here for the story. I really can't, squirmy fingers and face, and again, Emma's glazed look instead of diamond or whatever. No, I mean, it, like I said, it was a hard pill to swallow in a good way because it was something that was so different. It was like getting new Coke, it was a different taste.
Mhm.
And you know what? You didn't not like it, but you didn't go craving for it. But then when it's gone, then you might think, oh, maybe I should have had some more.
Yeah.
So I'm down for it. I like it. Definitely. I'm all for it. There's nothing necessarily I would have taken out of it, but there's also nothing I would have added to it. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the situations that I brought up the cover for 114. Like we saw a return to the X-Men being the team look.
Yep.
And everybody had the X logo, except, I mean, Wolverine running around shirtless, but he's doing what he's doing, which is fine because it fit the movie. And what they wanted to do is make that transition from big screen to big
Panel
pages.
page, yep.
Yeah, to big pages. And they did this, and they did it their own way. And especially it showed the changing of the guard at Marvel because this is a lot of radical ideas
Very.
that they're allowed to go and really reinvent the wheel, so to speak, with certain characters. Charles Xavier being one, Cyclops got a little more
Beast.
of a darker edge. Beast, Emma Frost. We
Yep.
saw the evolution of her character to where she is now. So when you start seeing these seeds planted and now where they are 20 years later,
And then
yeah, it really leaves that impression about how great this run was, or especially this story.
Yep.
The run itself is one that I talk with fans a lot, and like I say, I like the beginnings of this run. The
he
middle,
didn't stick the landing. I'll get right to it. He didn't stick the landing.
in my opinion. Yeah, there's which we can talk on another episode of Turner Page about if everybody wants to, but for what this storyline did, it set the bar high. And I mean, I think there's just very minimal things I didn't like about this.
Yeah.
So that being said, throw your picks in. What is your grade on this from 10? So Tom, I'll let you start.
I'll give this a 8 out of 10. I think it has a lot of great things in it. It was a fantastic book. Again, just because I had to read it almost 3 times to really comprehend what was going on. Yeah, it's an 8 out of 10.
Yeah. For me, reading the X-Men, knowing that we came from the voice of the X-Men, Chris Claremont, and going to Scott Lobdell and some of the other writers that are going on here, this was a very, very radical change. And especially with Grant Morrison's writing, who, like I said, revolutionized the JLA. So him coming over here, we knew we were going to see something different that we haven't seen before. This arc really set the tone for the series, that he was not afraid to shake things up, redefine the stat quo, and really align a lot of some of the themes with the pop culture audience, because you now have new eyes coming to see your books, which is a great thing about the movies, because if you have a big screen adaptation of anything, you're going to have more eyes coming to see the comic shops for, at least a little bit. So you got to put your best foot forward.
There's a word for that. Merchandising.
Yeah, but it works so in this sense, because ultimately that's the goal with these movies, to get people to the comic shops, and that's where they should go to read this amazing source material and buy this source material.
Agreed.
So I thought for what you saw this team do, they really got it right, and they really nailed the points they needed to with Quitely's art and Morrison's writing, and where they took this initial arc. Like, this is how you want to really make that statement right out the gate. This is a solid 9 for me.
Okay.
Because knowing where they were to knowing where they went, that's a big statement, and that's a big jump too.
I can see
because
I get it.
Because this could have completely fell on everybody's face, but this did not. This hit the mark, and then where we go from here, it only gets wilder and crazier as the issues progress forward for I believe it was a 3-year run.
Wow.
Yeah. So that said, you really want to go check this out while you're hitting the comic shops this week. The trade paperbacks are out. The issues you can definitely go check out as well. They're very, very much worth the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, Tom, it's almost time for us to get out of here. Why don't you let everybody know where to find you and what is going on with you and a certain show on Monday nights?
So Monday night at 8:00, you'll find me and Mickey CWK Smith. We're doing our Play for Keeps, the show, where we talk about all kinds of collectibles, from fantastic plastic to digital, so all kinds of things you can find out there in your favorite geekdom. So make sure to come by. And then obviously I'm here on Tuesdays, doing the Turn a Page off the cuff time. You can find me everywhere. And of course, because we are on Nerd Initiative, we love our QR code. So make sure you check out that QR code below.
Absolutely. They'll take you there. We need to update the link. I don't have one for Play for Keeps in here.
Oh, we'll make that happen.
We will make that happen.
We'll put it right into the playlist.
Yes, we will. If you want to find out what's going on with me and Padawan J and the rest of the ODPH team, right there, QR codes. If you're new to Nerd Initiative, we love those QR codes. Click that on. They'll take you over. A brand new episode just dropped today. Another one coming tomorrow. And then obviously Turn a Page is the official kickoff pregame for New Comic Book Day.
How many we got tomorrow?
I believe we're around 30.
Okay.
I believe we are. Marty Stoked is working on that lineup right now, but we have great picks from Image, Marvel, DC, Boom,
Dynamite.
There is a lot of amazing books coming out, which if you want to find out about that, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, nerdinitiative.com is going to be your place to go. Click on the comic book link, and you're going to see a lot of reviews pop up and make sure you're checking those out before you go to the comic shops, and make sure you're grabbing those issues because we are giving you a lot of recommendations this week.
You just recommended 5 different studios, and I did a review for at least 4 of them.
Yeah. That's how solid this week is. This week has got a lot of great books. Lucky Devils from Image Comics,
Ooh.
Aquaman #1 DC Comics, Absolute Batman #4, and then coming from Marvel, we're talking mutants, Magic #1.
Yep. And then also another mutant. What if Gambit what if Galactus transformed Gambit? Sorry, I can get that right. That's my review.
I know. Well, that's another way we'll remember him.
Man, shut up. I can't feel this, man. Come on.
Yeah. But that being said, though, you want to make sure that you do the homework assignment like you always should be doing. We appreciate everybody wherever you're watching us from: Facebook, Twitter, Kick, Twitch. But more importantly, make sure you're subscribed to Nerd Initiative on YouTube. There's exclusive content that is only going to be found there, especially some interviews right now. Jason Lowe interview is up right now. We have something else in the works that I'm not going to reveal just yet. That's going strictly to YouTube as well. So you want to make sure you're subscribed and don't miss a minute of all the video that's coming to the home of pop culture positivity. Last but certainly not least, nerdinitiative.com. We talked about the website a little bit. This is the place you want to go. If you want to get merchandise, that's the place you go. You want to check out all the amazing articles, not just talking comics, pro wrestling, sports, movies, TV. If it is positive and it's pop culture, Nerd Initiative has got it in that lineup. So make sure to go click on that, bookmark it wherever you check out your web stuff from, and definitely interact with us on social media because we like keeping those conversations rolling air.
Yes, we do.
So that being said, on behalf of Tom and myself, when you're at the comic book shops and you have a great issue in your hands, such as New Mutants 114 through 116 from Marvel Comics, and you see somebody struggling to find something, hand yours off to them. Tell them to turn a page. We'll see you next week.
I'm out.